All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try and get through this so you guys can have your Saturdays back. A recording of this will go up on the town YouTube page sometime this afternoon. So, just kind of an overview of the process. My name is Tyler Dunn. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen. I'm also chair of the budget process. This year, the committee has been comprised of all five members of the Board of Selectmen, Carl Rogers, Bob Grenier, Dan Shea, myself, and Peggy, along with town treasurer Dorcas Riley, and then four citizen committee members, Kathy Jacobs, Paul Crockett, Ona Fast, and Karen Mayers. Our process has been pretty straightforward this year. We've had a series of meetings over the last 8 weeks, meeting with most of the department heads and having specific budget sessions for each area of the budget. We've worked kind of collaboratively to evaluate year-to-date expenditures, past expenditures, and come to reasonable numbers and projections for the upcoming fiscal year. And we've taken a step to look back at capital and one-off, long-term expenses, and separate those off and treat them separately from operational needs. We've identified a couple of headwinds. There's still some ongoing inflation, especially this year now in fuel that we're seeing. We've seen a doubling of heating oil, for example, and some pretty high escalated diesel prices. So that's now been factored in. And then just a general 3% inflation. So everything that we're buying is on average 3% more expensive. We also are dealing with aging town facilities, especially here at the community center, at the town office, and at the fire station. The facilities are all showing signs of age. And we've tried to identify some of those expenses and kind of plan for the future at what it's going to take to actually maintain these buildings. And looking at some other alternatives for that. And then we have some population trends. This is especially going to show up in fire and rescue. We have an aging town population. They're demanding more services for fire, rescue, EMS, and there's just associated costs with that. Last year, the budget's broken into three main categories. You have the municipal budget. That is what this process entails. So that's going to be the fire station, the town office, community center, the transfer station, the ambulance services, road work, all that kind of stuff. That's going to fall under the municipal budget at 2.56 million or 38% of your tax bill. The next chunk of it, about 8%, is what we pay to Kennebec County. That's for the sheriff's office, the jails, and other functions of Kennebec County. And then the largest percentage is going to be the schools. And that's about 53.5% of your tax bill goes to the school. And that's about $3.56 million this last year for a total appropriation of about 6.6 million. Kind of breaking it down a little bit more. Again, education's going to come right up on top at 53. After that, at 18.5 is roads. Fire, rescue, and ambulance is about 10% of the budget, almost 11. General government, so the town office, administration of the town is about 8.29%. The county tax at 7.89. Recreation, so the community center, the library, beach, parks, activities, that's going to be about 1/10 of 1%. And then charitable donations that the town makes is going to be just under 1/17 of a percent. Couple of terminologies. The general fund, this is when you vote and approve it at town meeting, this is where most of the funds are. Undesignated funds, these are funds that the town has in reserve for emergencies and to cover the gap between when property taxes are assigned and expenses start being expensed and when property taxes start being collected in September and March. Capital funds, these are funds that the town has dedicated and set aside for replacement of large projects like the fire truck or roads or the library expansion. A lot of the work that was done to this building was done using capital funds. And that's the same function for a capital reserve. And then unused funds is funds that we project are going to be left over in this fiscal year that will carry forward to the next fiscal year for projects. So overall for the town this year, after the last budget meeting, we're projecting a 1.27% increase in the town budget. The big drivers of that are going to be fire and rescue, and ambulance services, along with community services. But everywhere else, we're expecting some cost savings this year in the town admin line, in the roads maintenance line. We're doing something different with roads capital. We're not going to fund that out of property taxes. We're going to fund that off of an existing revenue stream. So there's a more consistent contributions to road capital. And then there's also an increase due to some petitions that are out asking the town for money. So overall, the town budget, we're projecting to increase by $32,000 year to year. Getting into that, on the admin line, there's a couple of changes from the first draft. We've recalculated where retirement benefits are posted. So originally they were all posting into the admin line. Now they're spread out throughout the various budgets. So we know how much of the retirement budget goes to fire, how much goes to rescue, how much goes to transfer station, et cetera. So this budget, along with the reduction from the code enforcement officer, since that's no longer a town employee, but is instead a contracted service, we were able to reduce that by 1.3%, with personnel increasing by 10, operations declining by 10, and maintenance of physical plant declining by 1%. Changes from the last budget. Physical plant the reduction has decreased a little bit just because of the ongoing increase in fuel costs and the projections there. Capital improvement on the town administration is also down 17%. The comprehensive plan has been added back in. There's an increase of $300 in technology capital, and the one-time factoring of home values, that's no longer in this budget, so that's been removed. So there's a savings of 17% there. Moving on to fire operations. This is where the largest percentage increase is going to be for three main factors. One, the fire department has seen a 17% increase in calls year to year. Two, they're projected, historically, their payroll has run out in March and April, and the select board has asked them to make sure that expires closer to the end of the fiscal year in June, rather than running out halfway through the year. And then there's also been an increased demand on rescue, requiring more training, and just a decline in volunteers. So rescue is asked for a compensation increase to be more competitive and to hopefully attract more rescue volunteers. So that way there we have an EMS response. And again, you've got the fire and rescue, wages running out 2 to 4 months before the end of the fiscal year. So there's a projection there to bridge that gap. Rescue requiring more training, a change in their on-call stipend from $30, $20 a day during the week and 30 on the weekend, to 30 on the week during the week and 50 on the weekend per shift. And then there's again that surge in operational demand of 17% more calls year to date than last year. Moving on to operations on the fire side, there's very large increases this year. Again, a lot due to payroll, but also in the maintenance of the building. There's a lot of deferred maintenance that the department is trying to catch up on, particularly in station maintenance and truck maintenance. But also turnout gear has also gone up a lot more, and it needs now to be cleaned on a year-to-date basis. So that's why there's a 100% increase in the turnout gear line. Rescue the entire increase is driven by salaries, and there's no change to their operational expenses. Moving on to the transfer station. Here we're going to see about a 10.51% decrease. Again, this is driven down by an overestimation last year in wages. So we're going to reduce that line to be more in line with what's actually being worked, versus having such a large overage in that line. And that also brings down FICA. And then last year it was budgeted to build out an additional bulky bin. That hasn't been done. It's not practical. So we're going to take that expense out of this year's budget. And that's a $10,500 reduction. We're projecting electricity to increase somewhere between 10 and 15%. Central Maine Power has asked for over 15% increase to the Public Utilities Commission. So we have a bit of a range built in there to ensure that we don't overrun on electricity. And then all the other lines, waste disposal, And other utilities we expect to remain flat year to year. Other health and safety, this is completely driven by Winthrop Ambulance. Winthrop Ambulance is asking for a near 70% increase for ambulance services for this upcoming fiscal year, or a 93 or a $32,000 increase. There's a slight increase for dispatch services, but we expect that to wash out when Kennebec County makes a change. I'm going to save questions till the end, get through the whole budget. Uh, Other health and safety, everything else, liability and workers' comp insurance, we're expecting to remain flat. We also had a reduction in the emergency manager from 5,000 down to 500, with everything else remaining flat. Road work, the proposed budget this year is 1.1 million. That's a decrease of 6.7% or $79,000 from last year. This is going to reflect a reduction, a further 50,000 reduction in dedicated property or dedicated capital funding. And what we're doing is we're going to take the existing capital funds plus the remainder left over from the Blake Hill Bridge project, and we're going to build we're going to rebuild 3 roads that are in the worst shape. Sadie Dunn Road will be done this year out of a $325,000 road construction line, plus the existing capital budget. And then once we get the Blake Hill Bridge done, we're going to rebuild that road. So brand new bridge. There's an actual nice road on either side of that new bridge in anticipation of increased traffic. And while we have all the equipment done, we'll do Hovey Loose, which is across the street on the intersection of the North Road. So that'll get 3 of our major paved roads done and should really only leave Wings Mills and the Bean Road that haven't been fully rebuilt in the last couple of years. And so we're hoping we can do all of that with a minimal impact to property taxes by using capital funds that have been built up over the years, and then going forward, be more deliberate with our investments in roads capital. So that way we can have a consistent funding of road construction. But when there are areas where we need to spend more money because it's a bigger project, we have capital funds to draw on, and we can prevent fluctuations year to year in the budget. On the sign account, that's going to increase. All of the green Welcome to Mount Vernon signs are all in pretty rough shape. And we've worked with the school where the industrial arts students are actually going to rebuild them for us. Their only ask is that the town fund all of the materials. And they estimated that's going to be about $5,000, hopefully less if they can get deals and whatnot on materials. But that would replace all 4 plus add an additional one on the Belgrade Road of those green signs. Other than that, a slight increase in the maintenance brush line of 3% in line with inflation. And winter road maintenance per the snowplow contract that has 1 year left on it, Bob. 1 year left on it. There is a 3% increase there. And we're estimating that the winter sand salt stockpile, the $150,000, we're going to leave that flat year to year. Moving on to community services, the proposed budget is 106,000. A lot of this is driven at the community center, which there may be some changes there based on how the bids come in for the replacement of the ramp out here. It's been identified that it's not in compatibility with the Americans with Disabilities Act, so we do have to replace the ramp in order to keep the building open to the public. So we have quotes and bids to do that. It's running a little bit more than we're projecting, so we're still working through how we want to propose funding that to the town, and a couple of combinations of fundings between grants, undesignated funds, and the general fund. The Dr. Shaw Memorial Library, there's some context here. They've identified some carryover funds and they've built up their reserve funding. So they want to take a portion of that this year and buy down their increase. So they're going to take a one-time yearly reduction of just over $10,000 and reduce what they asked the town. So last year they asked for 45,000. This year they're going to ask for 34,500. So that covers their increase in their budget. The tech help program that they run every Wednesday, that grant has expired. They've noticed significant use of that grant opportunity, so they'd like to continue it. So that was a $5,000 increase. And then payroll, energy, and retirement all kind of factored in there. The after-school program is not requesting anything from the general fund this year. They are asking that the $18,000 ending balance from 2020 fiscal year 2024 that moved to the undesignated funds at the end of the year. They're asking for that to be taken back out of undesignated funds and put into their budget so that way there they can increase staffing, increase the amount of students that can be enrolled in it because they're currently at capacity on how many students can actually be in the program, and also offer scholarships to students that may not be able to afford to attend the after-school program. So, and other than that, aging in place, athletics, and the Beach Association are all flat increases for this year. Other expenses, so this is going to be charity donations. Belgrade Area Dams has asked for a $1,700 reduction year over year. This is one of the ones that fluctuates year to year as they identify maintenance on the Belgrade Lakes Dam system. And we're in an interlocal compact with all of the towns that have properties on the Belgrade Lake system. All of the other grants that we give, so Seven Lakes, 30 Mile Rivershed, Sexual Assault Crisis Support, Family Violence Process, Hospice Volunteer Spectrum Generations, and the Masonic Parking, all of those are remaining flat for the upcoming fiscal year. And then we have two petitions that are pending. One of them has been received and is on the warrant. That's going to be Neighbors Driving Neighbors. They've asked for a $1,000 contribution from the town this year. And the other one is the Historical Society. They have a pending petition for $10,000 donation for upkeep and maintenance on the Milton Bradley House in Vienna, where a lot of Mount Vernon artifacts are stored. On the capital project side, we have a couple of them. The first one is going to be the fire department. They have had an uptick in new members and a lot of gear that is no longer up to code. After 10 years, fire gear under NFPA standards is not considered safe. It's still good and usable for training, but for interior firefighters and firefighters that are actually on scene, they need to be in modern fit gear. They've identified a need of 6 turnout gear sets at $40,000 for those 6, as well as replacing 2 of the 6 remaining air packs that are on the old standard that they can no longer get parts for. So when we bought the new fire truck last year, we got 4 of the new style of air pack. But our existing fleet of air packs, there's 6 left that are on the old standard. As those break and fail, it's harder and harder to get parts to keep them in service. So a phased over the next couple of years, replacing 2 a year. So that's a pack and 2 bottles, 1 bottle on the pack and 1 spare air bottle. The community center, the ramp replacement here, we're going to be asking for up to $55,000 from the general fund, and then using capital and undesignated funds to cover any overages. And then there's also a proposal to replace the front stairs and replace a rotted windowsill, but that's going to go back for another revision in budget committee, but that's just where the proposal stands now. Again, the other big one is we are going to proceed with the rebuild of the Sadie Dunn this year. The goal is in and around town meeting, and very shortly we'll be getting bids out. We're going to grind the road, take all the rocks out, redo the base, and then pave it this year. There were some issues getting the state back and some changes. That's why it didn't happen last year. But that is, we are setting aside capital, we are setting aside construction money, and that is the road we're going to build this year. The road commissioner's on board, the select board's on board. And then the other piece of it is the full reval. The town has not done a proper revaluation of property assessments in over 20 years. State recommends we do it every 10. And we've seen a very large increase in property values over the last 10 years, or sorry, the last 5 years, as a lot of homes on the lakes have turned over with new owners, which has created an imbalance in the property tax space. And it has also impacted us on the homestead exemption. If your assessed value is different from what the state thinks your assessed value is based on home sales, they don't give you the full homestead exemption. So we need to do a reval in order to get the homestead exemption back up to 100%. So the other 2 items, these are bills that the town gets. We don't really have a lot of control over them. The first one is RSU 38. Due to a change in state funding formula, their budget is increasing to the town of 10%. That's all driven by a reduction in state funding to the school. So the state has said that property values have gone up. There's more of an ability to pay. So the state is reducing this funding formula. And then this is outdated because I just got a call today that the county tax is actually going up 9.3%, not 7.64. I'm going to the meeting on Wednesday to see if there is any movement that they're going to have, but they told me that this original number at 7.64 was the cap, and now they've come back again and raised it. Another thing that we're doing a lot better this year on is trying to be more accurate with our revenue estimates, so we can kind of see what's actually going to be on property taxes versus offset with revenue. This year here, we're going to factor into what we're projecting property taxes increase. It'll be different on the warrant because some of them apply after the warrants, like homestead exemption. But we're estimating $127,000 in homestead exemption reimbursement, $120,000 in bank interest earned on the undesignated fund balance, as well as just the general funds the town keeps, and $10,000 in building permit fees. This year, we've been able to predict, based on the money that we've gotten in this year so far, that the excise tax revenue is going to increase from 300 to 400,000. And the Lincoln Walton Trust Fund has also been doing a lot better. We're going to estimate that revenue is going to go from 40,000 to over $75,000 per year. The other thing we're going to do, as I mentioned earlier, is dedicate some revenues. Instead of them all just dumping into the undesignated fund balance and reducing property taxes, we're going to specify where some of these are going to go. So the first big one is roads and infrastructure. We get $60,000-ish a year in local road assistance. Instead of taking that and reducing property taxes, we're now going to direct those funds into roads capital and basically build the roads capital account. So again, when we get into situations like we need to rebuild the Sadie Dunn Road, the Bean Road, any of these major washout, or if we have a major storm, we have this dedicated money that we know is going into roads capital every year, and we can build that account up and kind of smooth over property tax increases when we have these larger projects. And then we're going to do the same thing at the transfer station and build that capital up, whether it be in so this is revenue from recycling, from metal, from fees when you drop off a chair or a table or building supplies, and we're going to direct that into the transfer station capital for if a compactor fails or we need to make changes to the driveway, we can fund that out of roads capital and have it not be a hit on property taxes every year. So kind of saying, we know we have these expenses that come down the line. Instead of paying for it all at once in 1 year's worth of property taxes or floating a bond, setting a little bit of money aside over time and building up those funds and being a little bit better stewards of the capital assets of the town. And again, I kind of explained that we want to make our reserves self-sustaining. So that way we know predictably, like we're going to have to replace a fire truck every 10 years. Okay, let's set aside what a fire truck is going to cost. If it increases over time, that's a different story to have at the end of 10 years, but the majority of it's paid for ahead of time. Same with roads, same with the transfer station, same with this building, the library. And again, kind of reduce reliance on, okay, we have a bunch of surplus that we've built up in undesignated funds. Instead of building that surplus more than it needs to be, because we do need to have some undesignated funds to kind of keep the budget floating between July 1st and when property taxes come in, first half in September, and then that second half in March. The town needs to have the ability to pay its bills without having to float a municipal tax bond. But over and above that, we don't really need to maintain that. So instead of ballooning that, be more deliberate and predictable in what we're actually doing with our capital funds. And that's just kind of just furthermore about why we're doing it. So overall, at the end of the day, with the changes in revenue projections, we're estimating that the total tax bill, the total expenditures of the town with the school and the county are going to be about $7.1 million. We're projecting this year about $1 million in revenue. So the total projected tax levy should be about $600,000 or a 1.75% increase year over year. If revenues stay the same and we factor it, it would be a 6% increase. But we're hoping with the changing how we look at revenues, that the actual projected increase is 1.75%, which is 2% or just under 1% under inflation. So, public comment, questions. If you want, we got a microphone right here I can bring to you.
So my question is, you were talking about the payroll adjustments
Yep,
for fire
yep.
and the Shaw Memorial Library. Uh, can you get specific about those increases?
Yep. So I don't have the salary scale for the fire department on front of me. But that scale is not changing. What it is we budget, I think last year was $68,000 to cover all of fire's wages. When they go to a call, when they're at a training, when they're at meetings, they're getting paid. We're estimating now that's going to run out sometime between February and April. And so,
Excuse me. So you said they're getting paid when they're volunteers, but they're also getting paid when they go on fires.
so yeah, they get paid for, and it's always been this historically.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, so they get paid. So say a call was to go out right now, they get paid for that call. They have a weekly meeting on Thursday nights. They get paid for that meeting, and then if there's any additional training, like a Saturday training, they get paid for that training. For a lot of the fire, it's a lot different than it used to be back in the day, where you didn't need as much training. But
Can we see those specific numbers online?
yes, those are all in the budget. The officer salaries, the only thing that's not right now is the actual pay scale. But I believe it's minimum wage when you or $16 when you first join, up to $29 for the fire chief. And there's a range in there based on your rank and years of service. But the officer salaries are up on the latest draft.
Also, so you mentioned that the state is not funding the school budget as much, and there's not a lot we can do about that at this point. Besides, I mean, they've really got us.
So what's hitting the school, it's two things that are hitting the school. One is the state thinks that the community, because of the rise in property values on the 3-year sales average, has gone up. So they think the town has more ability to pay. And then the other piece of it is district wide, there's been over the last 5 years, there's been a 25% decline in student population.
So Mount Vernon has a predominantly it's a lot of elderly people that live here. They're on fixed budgets, and that's always been with me.
Yep.
And the continual rise in property taxes is becoming a burden. So you keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And I
but
will
the
say
state-
on the school's end, their original, they've done as much work as they can to keep the schools running. Their original projected increase to the town was over 18%. So they are doing work. Obviously, I think they could do more. But their projected budget, if you aside from what they're sending to the towns, is a 2% increase, down from a 5. So they cut almost $1 million out of their budget, and eliminated programs and reduced staff. So it's tough, because they still have to provide a baseline of service to the students, and those costs increase. And under our RSU agreement, um, the yeah. Uh, no, tap the silver button.
Okay.
There you go.
Yay. Okay, so I just had, the, the undesignated funds, I just had a clarification. We, for just about every separate department, fire department, and then the special revenues.
Yep.
All of their income goes into, at the end of the year, anything they haven't used from the operating goes into their capital account. So, roads, maintenance, road construction went into capital, the net. If it was a positive, went into capital. We would pull the sum out of capital to cover overages. So LRAP did go eventually, would go into the road construction. And then at the end of the year, if it wasn't all used, that would go into capital. So that's not, it's just a change instead of
Right.
going,
Wait
kind of
until the end of the year to
away.
move it to capital, move
Right.
it to capital at the beginning of the year.
right.
So it can be used as soon as the funds come in. That was
Yeah.
kind of the logic there. Is that the
And-
LRAP funds could be used immediately versus waiting till the end of the fiscal year.
Right, so we were getting there, but part of it too was instead of just taking, if you voted a budget, if you don't roll it into capital, it would go away at the end of the year. So it wasn't a matter of it was a forethought, but also trying to keep people from trying to just spend at the end of the year to use things up, as we all do. I have this in the budget.
Right.
It's gonna go away. I don't. So that's why we did the rollover. There was one other thing that I'm a little concerned about, the workers' comp. You said there's no change. However, workers' comp is based on what you get paid
Mhm.
for what job. So it's two major components of workers' comp. The fire department and rescue are the highest rates. I mean, you're a lot more likely to get
Right.
injured than sitting at a computer in the town hall. So those are two of the highest rates, and where we do have such a huge increase in the payroll of the fire department, your workers' comp will go up.
Okay.
So that, I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. I think the other thing too on that is the net hours worked. There is an increase in call volume hours, but like the on-call hours remain flat. The training hours remain flat. It's really just the call volume that we've seen that increase in.
Yeah, but that's the increase, because at the end of the year, you get a workers' comp audit and you say, okay, here's what we thought you were going to spend based on the last year and any extra accidents. But this, what did you actually spend? And part of the on-call is part of the fire department pay.
Yep.
So, because that's what, if they go out on workers' comp, they get a comparable amount for while they're out on disability. So that's what raises your rates there. So that's just an FYI.
We'll look at that at the next meeting and we'll put that in the third draft.
Lee Tasca Pond Road in Mount Vernon.
Should be 29, Bob.
Is it,
Should be 29.
is there an age limit to the volunteer fire department? Am I too old to?
Physical exam?
No, just you probably won't be interior certified. But because that there's some the state and NFPA, National Fire regulatory bodies have put some pretty stringent physical requirements. Yeah, so you could be, if you could pass the test, you can be SCBA certified. It's, I mean, in general, but in terms of being a firefighter and going to calls and helping run a pump or something, there's no age limit on that.
To the education part, it's directly correlated to the fact that the town never did the reevaluation. Had we done the reevaluation on time every year, that 10.6 would, I believe, be down to 5.3. I'm just gonna leave that there. With your budget that you proposed today, are those actual numbers?
They're the numbers based on our revenue projections and our expense projections
So
at
like,
the committee.
so like postage is $9,000, but we don't even come close to $9,000. So to have a list up there of, it's a wish list. It's
It's
not actual
based on
numbers.
historical budget. It's based on historical
Historical
budget.
budgets, I agree that, but the money, the actual numbers, it's not based on actual numbers. And I'm just gonna leave that one right there.
And I would encourage you to attend the budget committee hearings.
I think we're going to be putting another $2,000 on the machine fairly soon. And we also have tax lien notices going out. Those are two fairly large amounts of money that are going to be putting onto that postage.
Any other questions, comments? No, you just muted it.
Okay. I'll get the hang of this. So I've been going through this and I'm trying to understand the health insurance is only for 40 hours a week.
Yeah, full time.
Okay, and 40 hours is the full-time for it?
Full time, yeah. Well, there'll only, in the proposed budget, there'll only be two positions that would be health insurance eligible. The town clerk and the town operations coordinator.
Okay, I like the town operations thing. That's kind of a great idea. So you have a $31,398 for the admin portion. So that would be just two people.
Two people, health insurance,
So-
80% of single only coverage. So if they bring their family on, spouse, child, or both, they pay the additional premium. We
Right,
only pay 80% of the single only premium, which is, I think, $1,400 a month. So we're paying 80% of that. If they choose to bring family on, they're responsible for that difference.
perfect. The one point, and I made it all last year and I just gotta throw it out there one more time. By offering health insurance only to full-time employees, you're valuing those people for $16,000 a year more than anybody else in the town. You're saying that the part-time workers are not worthy of ever being able to afford health insurance because you're not going to contribute anything. So that's
I think,
That's
I mean,
just
if
my
you look at
thought.
industry standard, though, health insurance benefits are usually not offered to part-time employees.
that is changing.
I
And
don't disagree, but
It's
there's,
like the paid family medical leave and the PTO, the state took over because people weren't stepping up. Industries are changing, retails, restaurants, they are changing to offer health insurance options in that you can get, even as a part-time, you get money towards it. If you choose to go with your spouse's plan, that's great. You're still having to put money into that. So that's my hill to die on, but I won't take your time up there. That's just my.
and then
idea.
the other piece of that is that we are expanding the retirement benefits and changing that. Instead of it being a fixed hourly contribution, it's going to be a match for the upcoming fiscal year. So the employee can elect to put in up to 4% or can put in more than 4%, but the town will match their contribution up to 4% of their total salary.
Right, but then I'm confused about that because I will go back through because I'm not seeing that it all matched up. Um, and I don't have those directly. For example, elections. You have $8,000. It was 6,968. You have $8,000. Those are usually about 8 to 12 employees, depending on how the scheduling goes. So they technically would be eligible for the retirement match if they wanted to. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Is that,
Yeah, it's factored in. If you
Okay.
look on the spreadsheet, it takes all of the salary lines, so cleaning, elections
it
and
doesn't,
general.
it doesn't show the election salary. There's more expense to the elections than just salary.
I'll double check that.
Elections, actually quite a bit of it is feeding breakfast, lunch and an evening meal because elections go so long. So there's quite a bit of expense for that and different printing and stuff. So there is more to the election line than just salary. And I don't see that broken out and I just want to make sure we're covering.
Yeah, yeah, I can
covering-
double check that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
I have a question on the benefits from last year that we put on the warrant to pay, and those haven't been dealt with. How is that going to be dealt with?
We're gonna be making one-time retirement contributions based on hours worked.
How are we going to do that now if we haven't figured out how to do it in the last 8 months?
So we've signed all of the documents with Mission Square to begin setting those accounts up. The hang up has been health benefits because we were told by MMA we were part of the health trust. And so we went through the process, we were ready to vote to sign the paperwork to offer health insurance. And then they came back and said, actually, no, you're not part of the health trust. You need to have a special town meeting to rejoin the health trust. And that's what the special town meeting is for. It's been health insurance that has been the grind up. We've had the retirement set up, or in process of being set up since January.
Perhaps I wasn't clear on my question, and it's not necessarily at you, it's probably at the whole board. The 35,000 that was on the warrant last year, how and why was that not dispersed, and how does that have to do with the MMA future health insurance?
So it was supposed to be for health insurance benefits and all of that. Those weren't set up and ready to go when it was approved last year at town meeting. It was just budgeted for, and then they would set up the administration as the year went on. We were just about there in December until we got told by MMA that we weren't in the health trust, and then we've spent the last 2 months trying to get there so that we can be part of the health trust.
Was any question made like payroll could have dispersed that money?
It was supposed to be paid as a benefit. If we couldn't get the benefit set up, we couldn't pay it.
Food for thought. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, on the road, I printed this off from the website. On the road account, it says the Bush account, personnel / gross, road maintenance Bush. And it's $2,100. And then up above, it says overall road, employee FICA. No, I'm down a line. The employee FICA is 2,100. I don't see any salary line on the road accounts. So why would you have FICA?
For the road commissioner. And
Okay,
that's in the road maintenance line.
okay, but his personnel line, it does get distributed to Bush Road construction bridges. So you just have it embedded in
Yeah.
those, but, okay. So on Trio, you need separate personnel wage lines, but then there's no retirement benefit there. You need a 4% retirement
I
also.
can match that in. I'll make that adjustment.
Okay. Great. I'll stop after each one just to make sure everybody gets a chance. Okay. Just, we did talk about this some before the meeting, and then you spoke about it. How the revenue has increased. It hasn't really, because on your revenue line on the website, you added in the homestead exemption, which was always lowering what we needed to raise. It just wasn't showing it separate. So for comparison, yes, you should add it in, but to be fair, you should add it into the last year's also. For you.
Okay,
so you
yeah, I
have a
could do that.
comparison.
Yep.
Okay. I'll let it go there for now. Okay, and one more. The, you and I have spoken or had some email conversations about the after school. The 18,000, when the I'm not against after school. This honestly isn't. I just want to make sure that we're very clear to people because it was a $22,000 line item in 2024, 25. And the idea was that that was the total amount if we didn't get any money, just as seed money so that we could get it started. And it was an up to that amount. And so what wasn't, and it was supposed to be self-sustaining. So what wasn't used, and I think we used 6,000. I'm talking rough numbers. Because this is just from memory. So I want to make sure that we're real clear with the town meeting when people vote on this. I have no problem taking the $18,000 from surplus, although you are taking a lot from surplus. We already took a ton of money for Blake Hill Bridge and for the fire truck. So the thing is that if we can take the $18,000 from surplus and give it to after school, it's not free money. Yes, we already paid the taxes that put it there, but we paid the taxes. And instead of it going to something else, we would have to raise taxes to cover what that could have covered. So it wasn't an oversight. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was an up to, they only used 6,000, so the rest of it rolled back to general fund, which is how those are the things that build up surplus. The other thing is when you start, I don't know of any other revenue streams that we have for the roads other than LRAP. And that's 60,000 sounded high to me. It's about right. Okay. So you're dedicating a revenue stream that always went there anyway.
Right, but you're dedicating it as soon as it comes in, rather waiting for the fiscal year to end and then spend it the next fiscal
Right.
year.
And there are other things like FEMA comes in. Surplus not only is to bridge the gap between July and September when we actually get property taxes rolling. So we need more than 3 months in surplus so that you don't have to pay stupid money with tax anticipation note interest. The other thing that you really need surplus for is, okay, we have another December 23 storm. And it wipes out my barn and my not a barn anymore, and all the roads in town, devastates the community center, rips the roof off again and da 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 da. Okay, well, those things just have to be fixed and FEMA's going to come through with money eventually, but usually for not 2 years. That's where the surplus comes in to help you get through those unforeseen.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. What we're proposing is instead of relying on a fluctuating surplus, actually dedicating money into capital, and instead of drawing from undesignated funds, you're drawing from capital for those same things.
And the one thing with drawing from capital is, and this I want to make sure the town knows too, all the funds that roll from net operating left over for the fire department, for example, goes into their capital improvement. They can't just go out and spend it. They have to get the select board's approval for it.
Right.
Which is planned. I mean, it's not, oh, woo-hoo, let's throw a pizza party. Not that they would, but I
Right.
mean, it's
Right,
just
no,
they're
that's
protecting against that.
that's the purpose. It's
But as you build up capital, surplus you can't take money from without a special town meeting, the town authorizing you to expend that money. the more you put into capital, the more you're taking away the decisions from the townspeople and putting it in the hands of selectmen, period. Because once it's in capital, the selectmen can just spend it any way they want. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Again, though, but I think when it comes to if we had a major road washout, the select board could go to the road commissioner and say, okay, we have this in capital, use that to fix the roads. And you wouldn't have to wait the waiting period on a special town meeting. So it improves the efficiency of government.
I don't disagree with putting the LRAP into that account. However, we were told at the last budget committee by the select board that that money just went into general fund and it didn't need to be associated with the capital fund. Yet it was said, it's on the YouTube video. Just want to put that there.
Any other questions?
A comment about the after-school program and those funds and your 22,000, the initial seed money. Over the years that they've been, the after-school care program, they've done fundraisers and that money went back into the fund as well. We're trying to make this right by making sure they get their fundraising money, which they had, and every year it was put back. So that is one of the reasons we want to put the 18,000 back as well, Carrie.
Okay, I get that, but they've only been in business. This is the second year. The first year, we voted up to 22,000 and it was supposed to cover everything. This year, we put an additional 5,000 in. And yes, that should be a special revenue. And if there's anything left, it should be. But where it was the first year, it wasn't a special revenue yet because we didn't know whether it would work. That's the difference. I don't have a problem with anything from this year going back, but everything they raised the first year was it was operational. It was getting stuff, which was what they were supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to cost the town anything. So that's just semantics.
All right. With that, I thank everybody for coming out today. This video will get posted up onto YouTube. Along with the presentation and the current budget draft is also on the town website. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you so much for having me.